Ehoud Olmert heads off to Washington over the weekend for his first trip as Prime Minister and a critical meeting with President Bush. For an Israeli leader, every meeting with an American president is crucial, but none more so than his first as Prime Minister. As Olmert prepares to set out, however, what is notable about this trip is just how much the political knives are out, not in the United States capital, but here in Jerusalem. Antagonism from Olmert's political adversaries within and without his coalition government. The reason is wariness or concern or fear that the newly installed Prime Minister will actually succeed in selling his concept of a unilateral withdrawal from part of the West Bank, and that he will gain U.S. backing for that policy. Withdrawal in Israeli political parlance now goes under the semi-official term regathering. Either way, what it boils down to is Olmert's determination to redraw the border between Israel and the Palestinians in the West Bank, a policy which will require the uprooting of tens of thousands of the Israelis who have settled in those areas since 1967. Many within Israel are indeed skeptical about Olmert's intention and his ability to carry the plan to fulfillment. And according to reports from the United States, Western diplomats who over the past week have been trying to work their way around the issue of how to relieve the bankruptcy of the Palestinian Authority without supporting the new Hamas government are really worried. What apparently worries them is not Hamas, but this Olmert determination to press on with Israel's unilateralist approach in the West Bank and to engage in another withdrawal like Israel did in Gaza last year, again without coordination with the Palestinian leadership. If that's what worries them, they should indeed be worried. It's precisely where Israel is headed. But should it be the cause for worry? A World Restored was the title of the first book written by Henry Kissinger, one of the great statesmen of the last century. In it, Kissinger wrote the following. Statesmen, he said, must be judged not only by their actions, but by their conception of alternatives. Yet the most intractable conflict of the century, that between Palestinians and Israelis, eluded even the wisdom of the statesman who prided himself on just this issue, the devising of conceptions of alternatives. With regard to Ehoud Olmert, clearly he is much too fresh as national leader to resolve the question whether he will become not only a major leader, but also a statesman. But one thing is already clear. Olmert has already met the Kissinger challenge head on. He is positing a conception of an alternative. Ariel Sharon, whom Olmert succeeds, leaves a lasting legacy, the introduction of just such an alternative, an attempt to escape the conflict with the Palestinians by enforcing the unilateral withdrawal from Gaza. But remember, it was Ehoud Olmert who initially provided the conception for Sharon's action strategy. But why do I insist that this is a moment of truth for Israel, which Olmert seems set on grasping? It's because it goes well beyond a policy conception. It's because for the first time since 1967, the Israeli people seem to have internalized the need to forgo the lion's share of the West Bank. For the 39 years since Israel conquered the West Bank and East Jerusalem, metaphorically, the Israeli mindset has remained in the mold created back then in 1967 by then Defense Minister Moshe Dayan. We await a phone call from the Arabs to sit down to discuss peace, said Dayan. From the Palestinians, that call came only in 1993, by which time Israel was caught in the quagmire of its continued occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. Now, however, the Israeli people seem ready to adjust their attitudes to the future of those territories. As the name of the concept, regathering, evokes, this second planned Israeli withdrawal may hardly satisfy the Palestinians, mainly because it doesn't involve total withdrawal, but also because this is a unilateral policy, a policy less about Palestinian interests and entirely about Israelis concerned with the nature of their own society, their own national purpose. Peace is considered the obvious alternative to the continuation of any conflict. The interlude of the peace years of the 90s promised an end to Israeli occupation through negotiation for peace. In reality, though, Israel never gave up its control over the Palestinian territories, nor did peace materialize. It's precisely because of their experience of the occupation and of a conflict which simply would not end that Israelis are looking to an alternative policy, that they may be prepared even to enforce it unilaterally, all just as to ensure that 39 more years of occupation won't occur and that there won't be continued active confrontation with their Palestinian neighbors. And what Olmert hopes for is that if he is able to convince President Bush to accept, even temporarily, the merits of new borders, which he plans to establish in the West Bank, that would imply U.S. acceptance of the need for an alternative a la Kissinger, the concept that there has to be an alternative to absolute peace. This alternative to peace may indeed amount to less than the ideal, the quest for an end of conflict, the concept which has been the accepted conception for generations of statesmen of how to resolve the confrontation between Palestinians and Israelis. But it has taken a full generation and a half to get Israelis to this moment of truth. And for the moment, unilateral regathering, partial withdrawal in exchange not for peace but for separation from the Palestinians looks to be the only alternative. Ehoud Olmert seems to have realized that mindset of the Israeli people, and he seems to mean to make it the new Middle East reality, with, he hopes, the backing of a man considered a strategic friend of Israel in the White House.